Here we are, back in the Pacific Northwest, Brian. Anytime you come through here, what does it mean to be back in this part of the country?
Oh, I just love it. I love everything about it. I love the weather. Even though today it's a little overcast, and people have said to me, it's too bad that you came on such not great weather, and I'm like, I love this, right? So yeah, I'm going to get to see some of my family tomorrow. My high school friends are going to be at Wrestledream tomorrow, and so yeah, it's cool. I love it.
Yeah, how do you not love this weather? Come on.
Yeah.
And I have to say, with this huge event, with everything that's on this, how fitting is it that it's Wrestledream, it's everything that's on the line with you and Jon Moxley, and it's here in Seattle, right?
Yeah,
or Tacoma, what I'm just saying, yeah.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's perfect it's at the Tacoma Dome, too, because that's the first place I ever saw live wrestling. My parents took me to a show when I was 9 years old, and yeah, it was the first place I ever got to see live wrestling. My hero at the time was the Ultimate Warrior, and he was in the main event. So it's super cool, and so there's that aspect of it. There's also just the Washington State wrestling fans. They treat me different than anywhere else in the world. So that feels nice. That feels really nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did that kid who was watching Ultimate Warrior at the Tacoma Dome, could they have ever dreamed all of this has happened?
No, to be honest, it's even if you think of okay, Bryan Danielson, the 17-year-old kid who's about to go to wrestling school, he wouldn't have envisioned all of this, right? Even the first couple of years of my wrestling career, actually a lot of it was never even my intention. I didn't want to be famous in the United States. I grew up with this different mental model of I was super shy, and the idea of oh man, how nice these guys can go over to Japan, make a living, and be kind of famous in Japan, and then come back and nobody knows who they are, right? And I was like, that's the dream. So wrestling has surpassed any expectation that I've had of it.
And I mentioned a moment ago, at this point in your career, and you've done so much, and who knows how much longer it goes, right? But my goodness, can you look back at everything and all the fans you've inspired that have cheered for you since day one, and they still are going to be cheering for you in Tacoma? Can you just, I know it's hard when you're still doing it to put it all in perspective, but I'm sure you have some kind of appreciation of, wow, this has been an awesome ride, an awesome journey with so much done.
So I feel like I've been able to have that perspective for a while now, and it's because I was forced to retire before, right? I was forced to retire when it was Key Arena. I came in, I announced my retirement, and yeah. So since I've come back from that, so I hadn't had a match in 3 years, and then I was able to come back, and it's really interesting the perspective shift that gives you as far as one of the things for tomorrow's match is that I'm the AEW World Champion, and as soon as I lose that championship, I'm going to be done as a full-time wrestler. And so people are like, whoa, that puts a lot of pressure on you as far as how do you feel about that? And what I came to realize is before I was forced to retire before, I had my last match, and I didn't even know it was my last match. Any match can be your last match, right? And I've really taken this concept of, hey, anytime this could be it. And so just enjoy all of it, right? Enjoy the struggles. Right now I'm going through a decent amount of physical pain.
Right, oh my gosh.
Yeah, but right before I walk out there, it doesn't exist, right? There's just we have some camera guys who, they're pretty much taking pictures and filming at all times, right before you go out there. But there was one that really caught me because I didn't realize it until recently that I do this. Right before my music hits, I end up just this huge smile. And it still brings me such joy. So wow. Yeah, so it's been an incredible ride.
And that led perfectly into what I wanted to ask you next. That so many of us, we play entrance musics in our car to get ready for work, or for our 2-year-olds, as I told you a minute ago. First of all, you just mentioned that adrenaline you have as it's going on, but yet you're going to have it in that stage with everything we just talked about, what it means. I know you've done it 1,000,001 times, but can you think about what you're going to be feeling in that moment?
So it's interesting. I've in the would say in the last 10 years, I've really focused on meditating as far as like a practice that helps center me and makes me more present and makes me more appreciative of the blessings that I have in my life, right? And one of the things that it's helped me with too is realizing that every moment is different, right? There are some times, and this happened to me in actually a very big moment in wrestling, on a big stage, where I walked out and felt nothing, and it was surreal. It was like, because I was very aware that I felt nothing, and I was like, and I had this thought in my mind. I was like, am I gonna die? Right? Is this peace? Is this peace, or is this nothingness that feels like, And there was a couple things in the match that I was a little bit actually nervous about physically, and I was just like, okay, maybe this is it. Oh no, it's not. But it's interesting because you go out there, and because all reactions are different. Even the reaction, the difference between wrestling in the Climate Pledge Arena and in the Tacoma Dome is going to be different, right? So if you go in there with an expectation of getting this reaction, you're either going to be surprised if it's better, or you're going to be disappointed that it wasn't what you were. So if you go out and just, okay, this is going to be what it's going to be, and just appreciate it for what it is, every time feels different.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You mentioned the fans here in the Pacific Northwest, and certainly pro wrestling as a whole, popularity, mainstream, probably more than ever, right? What does it mean to be able to, your generation of stars has really, brought wrestling, the diehards are always going to be the diehards, right?
Yeah.
But brought it to so many more people, and brought so many more people into the sport, and to really enjoy it that way. What does it mean that it's your generation of guys and gals that are able to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really thought of it from that perspective. To be fair, when I think of wrestling, I do think of like what the fans enjoy.
Yeah.
But mostly I focus on my own enjoyment. So I'm just I came to realize at some point, a lot of people do wrestling, or they do these, or acting, or whatever it is, they do it to be famous. The reality to me is I realized that I just love to just do it. Yeah. So it's like during the pandemic, when we were wrestling in front of no people, almost everybody hated it. I loved it. Really? Just loved it. And because it became an entirely different medium for what this is, as far as a different medium of entertainment. It would probably be the difference between, if you're thinking from an acting perspective, acting for cinema versus acting in a theater, right? It's two very different things. It's two very different styles of acting. And so yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I realized that I just love the intricacy of it, and the fame aspect of it is actually the least appealing part. Like, I've come to think of fame as a trap. It's something that they tell you to desire. Like, you grow up thinking like, oh, you want to be these people, or you want to be these people. But the reality is, no, that's kind of wanting other people to like you or value your opinion is a trap. But if you can find something, like if you find something that you enjoy, regardless of whether it makes you famous or not, that's where the key is, right? So it's like when people ask me, they say things like this. They say, do you want your daughter to be a wrestler, or do you want your son to be a wrestler? My thing is, I don't care what they do. I just want them to find something that they love as much as I love wrestling, where they would do it. Like, I would have wrestled this whole time. Don't tell my boss this. I would have wrestled this whole time without getting paid at all because I just loved it. Like, if I would have done this as a hobby, right? As just something that's fun, And so to be able to make a career out of it and still feel that joy has been a huge blessing.
This chapter in AEW, how much fun has that been for you?
Oh my gosh, yeah, the best.
I can see it.
Yeah, the best. And because, we get a little bit of more freedom to be able to do what we want. It's the style of wrestling that I like more. One of the things, AEW has a tagline, "Where the best wrestle." And one of the things that I like about it is it's a hard-hitting style. It's a faster-paced style. It makes me have to train more like an athlete, which is what I love. I've always loved the competitive, the sports-like feel, the sports-like presentation of wrestling. Yeah. And so that's been a lot of fun. And it's also allowed me to, one, reconnect with some people who I hadn't seen in a long time, and then also make new friends with people that I'd never met before. So it's great.
I know this is almost going to sound cliche when I ask it, but whether it's the past events that AEW's come through, whether it's Wrestledream here, maybe there's a kid in Aberdeen that can say, "Hey, Brian did this for my town." Mm-hmm. If I know that you've inspired a lot of folks out there, but have you thought about that in the hyper local sense that there's somebody that could be watching that town and be like, "Hey, this guy did it," and it can inspire them to do great things in their own life, whatever field they make it into.
Yeah. So it's really interesting because coming up from Aberdeen, obviously, the most famous person from Aberdeen, Washington, is Kurt Cobain. And yes, he accomplished great things, but he also had an incredibly tragic ending, right? And so, there was actually a lot of controversy over doing for example, like a Kurt Cobain museum or something in there because they didn't want to highlight suicide, for example, when we already have an issue with that. Yeah. So the idea of being somebody who came from there, who's gained a little bit of fame or success to where kids can be like, okay, there was a lot of, when I was a kid, a lot of people just thinking like, okay, we just need to get out of here or whatever it is, and the idea that no, Aberdeen is an incredibly special place, and the idea that no matter where you're from, you can accomplish whatever your dream is, you can do it. There's a Paulo Coelho quote that I really liked, and I used it when I came back from when I was forced to retire. And it's, if you fight for your dreams will fight for you. And it's cliche, and it's a little like, oh gosh, a little too hallmarky or whatever it is. But whatever mental construct that you need to fight for this thing that you really want to do. I mean, because people can do it, right? I am not an incredible athlete. I was never the best athlete at Aberdeen High School, and just think of that. We were a AA school, sure, right? And so nobody would have listed me as even the 10 best athletes, one of the 10 best athletes in my class. I couldn't do a book report in front of my classmates without stammering and stuttering. My senior year, the teacher actually said, "Brian, you can sit down," before I even finished my book report because I couldn't get past the third paragraph. And so it's like, so all these things that you think, well, I'm not this or I'm not that. If you're really passionate about something, sometimes that passion can just drive you forward. Like, I've had to learn to be more athletic. I've had to learn to talk in front of people. Now I can come in here with no prep, no paper, and just talk freely with people I barely know. So it's like, and know that it's going to be on TV or whatever. So yeah, and it doesn't faze me at all.
Oh my God! Well, they're still going to beat Hoquiam, though, right? Aberdeen,
what's that?
Aberdeen's still going to beat Hoquiam when they.
I mean, sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. Okay. I think the idea is not in the winning and the losing, right?
I like that.
The idea is that you have this thing or this team that brings out the most fire in you, right? So it's like Aberdeen, Hoquiam. Okay, it brings out the fire. So you're getting the best of both teams, right? I like to think that's a little bit what professional wrestling is like. Like, I'm wrestling John Moxley tomorrow, and there's this fire, there's this thing that's going to hopefully bring out the best in both of us, for ourselves, so that we feel satisfied, so that we feel at peace, but also so that the fans, when they go, they're like, holy cow, we saw a hell of a fight.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to talk about that to wrap things up here from the standpoint of somebody in Washington. I hope you're holding that belt for a very long time for a lot of reasons. Should it be the end of that and the end of things, right, in that regard, from that chapter of your career, would it be fitting that it's in Tacoma, at that place this all kind of started for you? Yeah,
I mean, that does seem fitting, but it also seems a little bit wrong, right?
Yeah.
It also seems like in my heart, one of the things that's bringing me fire is giving, like you said, inspiring, for example, people from Aberdeen or whatever it is, but giving the people of this area one last, hurrah, we did it, this is our guy and he did it, right? Unfortunately the Seahawks didn't do that last night, that's a real thing, right? You know what I mean? It's like to go out and leave an arena with everybody going, yes, that was amazing. Yes. you know, that's awesome. That's like this awesome thing that we have the ability to do.
So I was also laughing right as you said, brings the fire out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Listen, I just rapid fired questions at you. It's such a pleasure to talk to you. But is there anything about the event, about anything with your career that you maybe want to talk about that my questions didn't cover? It's okay if that's not the case. But
No. I mean, you know, one of the things that regardless of how tomorrow goes, I just wanted to say thank you to the fans of the Pacific Northwest, because, you know, a lot of the biggest moments of my career wouldn't have happened without the people here. Like, there was this incredible moment in at Key Arena where I was with WWE at the time, and they're focusing on John Cena and Randy Orton, and they're both champions, and they're going to have this big match at Royal Rumble for who's the best, you know, whatever. And they had all the former champions in the ring, of which I was one of them, and the crowd just started chanting Daniel Bryan, and they wouldn't stop. And that's a cool moment in itself. But that night was the last night my dad ever got to see me wrestle. And he had never seen people react to me like that. And he had been like in Longview, Washington. I did a show at like a flea market, and he saw me wrestle in front of like 35 people, where people are like, oh, and he's like, what is my son doing with his life? And and he brought his boss. He had his wife with him, and he got to be able to see that. And he didn't say this to me, but he said it to my sister. He said, I just didn't realize that Bryan was this, you know. And so it's more than anything else, it's a thank you. It's a gratitude for everything, not for what I've given to you guys, but for what you guys have given me. Because without you guys, a lot of these blessings wouldn't have even happened. So thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much.
Yep,
Appreciate your time.
absolutely.
Thank you.